let me ram some more of the down your throat, and that's kind of what this feels like.
Hello and welcome to Gamified, the show where people who work in gaming break down the biggest stories in the industry, one game mode at a time. Every topic has a format. Every panelist gets a 60-second clock. Nobody gets to be boring. This is episode 150. This week, a beloved studio gets quietly killed by the company that owned it. An AI executive with zero gaming experience became the head of Xbox. Blizzard just dropped a brand new mobile game nobody saw coming. And we're going to ask the question, am I going to have to play Friendslop for the rest of my life or just for 2026? Quick panelist introductions. Find his signature at the Video Game Hall of Fame next to Solitaire. The Gandalf of game design is back now building Origins TCG. It's Kevin Lambert.
What's up? I am here instead of testing our games, so if there are problems, you know why.
Up next, he built esports dynasties at Soar, held the keys at Magic Eden, and will go to war for RuneScape's honor. It is the emperor of esports. It's Knock.
Yeah, I'm battle testing RuneScape's new cow boss right now. 206 kills on the road to 1K.
Jesus, dude, that's disgusting. Up next, he went from shredding riffs and dive bars to shredding metas and multi-dimensional game economies. It's the king of the cards, the prince of parallel. It's Koji Nagata.
What's up, man? I'm excited to dig my teeth into the topics this week. Let's do it.
Dude, Koji's never excited about topics. That's great news for us. And
I never read them.
From Nintendo to the AI frontier, teaching machines to care and create. It's the pixel prophet turned AI poet from Yumio. It's Michael O'Connor.
Lovely. Great to be back here and very excited about the new format.
Thanks, brother. Great to have you. Born in tournament lobbies, raised by red dots, he traded kill streaks for KPIs and never looked back. It's Dub.
Yo, dude, you know we're going to be playing Friendslop forever. Just accept it.
And shoulder pressing entire product launches as the business development barbarian, the champion of indie gaming. It's Will Spangler.
Yo, what's up, guys? Good to be back. I got my first ever hate comments on the short from my comments on Diablo last week. So I am very excited to continue on Blizzard for their mediocre decisions this week.
You and Koji both catching some strays over that one, or maybe not strays, maybe direct shots. Anyway, let's jump into topic number one. Have we reached the oversaturation of Friendslop titles? Change my mind. Friendslop is oversaturated. Unicycling, sausages, airport security simulators, super battle golf, capybara standing simulator. The genre of intentionally broken, physically chaotic, absurdist multiplayer games is everywhere right now. And our position today is that it is oversaturated. New Friendslop titles are going to struggle to find an audience because there are too many of them. If you don't know, Friendslop is like, I don't know, $3 to $20 titles, typically very frantically thrown together, co-op with 4 people and some kind of absurd premise. These go viral every single day on Twitter, and it seems like we've gone from a good one coming out maybe every month to like 2 or 3 every single day. With that being said, let's go over to Koji, who I know plays tons of Friendslop.
Yeah, man, you forgot to mention proximity chat. That's a key feature of these. So I mean, these games are designed to be infinitely streamable and clippable so that, like, the TikTok youth can suck it up, but it's here to stay, man. I don't think it's going anywhere. Like, we got to change our mindsets on what gaming is. There was a time when you spent $70 on a game and you were like, okay, I'm gonna play this shit for the next like 3 years, and we haven't evolved out of that mindset, which is crazy. Because what gaming is now is it's like going to the movies or something, right? It's just like, I'm gonna pay a one-time entry fee, have this experience, and when I'm done with it, I'm done with it. And like, yeah, that is disposable, but I mean, that's fine as long as the point of entry is cheap enough and people are having fun with it. Like, I think the idea, especially now that we're in an AI era, of Friendslop sort of taking over the more casual gaming experience, makes perfect sense, right? It's like when everyone was playing Cards Against Humanity and now is playing like Time's Up or whatever other board game you want at a party. It's just one of those things where it's like fun to experience with friends and then move on to the next thing.
Wills, what do you think? Is it just for 2026 or is it for the rest of my life? I'm going to have to play Friendslop.
I think it's a really interesting that you use the term oversaturation, because that implies that there is not a demand, and there most definitely is. And I think what we're seeing and kind of what we tend to see with genres these days is once something sees a hit, we see this diversification of the the kinds of games that are being made, the audiences that are being targeted. And that's exactly what I think we're doing with is happening with the Friendslop games. I think it's really exciting to see that there is a game for everyone that can get everyone excited. And the nature of these games is, as Koji said, you pick them up, play them, and you move on. It's not as competitive as the other games that we know and love. You're not playing them for 3 years. It's very easy to kind of play, the RV game one week, play the golf game the next week, and it's not really cutting anyone out or anyone in. There will be, you'll have, a roster, or at least I do. I've got a roster of Friendslop games that I have in my inventory, and it kind of just depends on who's on. What are we playing? I've got a different group that I play the RV game with. I've got a different group that I'm going to play the golf game with. It's really exciting, and it's very self-supporting. It's almost like the more Friendslop games there are, the more Friendslop games that there are going to be, and the more people that will be playing them. It's this really cool, exciting loop that reminds us why we're here playing games. We're here to play games and have fun with our friends. There's no extra bullshit. There's no extra monetization. It's just simple, fun gameplay experiences, and I think that that's really speaking to something that people want to see that they haven't been seeing the last few years.
Kevin, is this a pure co-op experience? Because I don't have to level a character to 60 in order to do things with my friends. I could just boot up some Friendslop. Oh, what do we think?
I am fascinated by Friendslop because I don't even think it's a genre. I think we're watching game distribution evolve a little bit, right? These games aren't built around mechanics. They're built around these moments optimized for someone on a stream, a 22-second TikTok clip for a Discord group to impulse buy it on a Friday night, right? Like it's rather than being the 40-hour epic experience, it's really optimized for that 30 minutes. The customer is the clip, right? And I think that's pretty smart, because discovery is a pretty hard problem in gaming right now. And if you can manufacture 5 viral moments immediately, like in the first 10 minutes, like you've solved the awareness problem that most indie games, need to get seen. But the risk is in the novelty decay, right? So like in game development, we used to build mechanics and now we're building physics accidents, it feels like. But once you've consumed that, the emotion dips, the clip dies, and when the clip dies, the distribution and the funnel die with it, right? So to me, it's not even like whether or not Friendslop is oversaturated. The most interesting question, I think, is whether or not anybody can layer in real systems and sustainable experiences underneath the chaos, stuff like progression, identity, and depth. Because if somebody can crack that, I think they will be around forever, but you won't have the same reaction. And if not, it's just going to become like a louder version of Flash games from 2008, if you guys remember those.
Michael O'Connor, you work on something where instead of Friendslop with my actual friends, I might have some AI friends that I can proximity chat and do other things with. What do you think about this genre? Are you taking anything and applying that to your own product, or do you think this is going to be a fad that sort of dies out? What's your take?
I think it's interesting. I think that, like, if I may zoom out for a little bit, like every genre, not just Friendslop, is essentially oversaturated in games at the moment. The games industry hasn't, outside of like the majors, a few Chinese publishers, Roblox, the game industry hasn't really grown that much over the last couple of years. But in that period, there's been tons more games, tons more studios, way more investment into those studios, which has slowed down dramatically now. So all the genres are oversaturated, which has made it more challenging across the board. I don't think it's something that's going away. I think that we'll continue to see more things like Friendslop and more peripheral genres that will pop up, especially with more vibe coded games as they come out more and more. So I think we'll see a higher degree of slop, a higher degree of people taking pot shots at trying to connect games into audiences. And overall, actually, I think that's probably a good thing for games, because it will create more. There will be more creators. If there'll be more players or not, it probably looks like that will be true as well. But that's a kind of a trickier question.
Knock, I know you're obsessed with Friendslop. Hit me. Is this oversaturated or not?
No, not even close. Listen, Friendslop is designed to be low stakes, right? It's low stakes from inception. It's low stakes on the side of the developer. They're not spending $10 million or more building this game. It's low stakes on the side of the player. It's $5 or $6 or at most $10 to get the game. It's low stakes from a time commitment perspective. And this is where I disagree a little bit with Kevin. I don't think progression has a place in Friendslop. I think these are games that are designed to catch a wave of interest. You play it for 10 hours with a friend over the course of the weekend. You delete that game from your Steam library and you never play it again. I think that is by intention. And I think for that reason alone, because it's low stakes, it's easy enough to jump in, not feel like you have to sink 40 hours into a title, not feel like you need to understand what's going on, understanding the mechanics out of the gate because you've played one or two of these games in the past, and then really just applying that to whatever new scenario it is that you're being faced with, right? In the case of We Are So Cooked, it's dragging a dead body out of a room without being seen. In the case of the TSA simulator, it's processing passengers with a wanky a wild physics engine. In the case of Are We There Yet, it's how do we navigate this vehicle over different terrain. But at the end, it's just about playing a game with your friends for 5 or 6 hours, something that is low stakes, something that'll get you excited, something that if you choose to play it again, you will have a fundamentally different experience than the first time you played it with, because the input that changes the output of the game experience is who you're playing it with, when you're playing it, and what that looks like. I think you're going to see dozens more of these titles over the course of the next couple of years. I think that they're going to get more innovative, but most importantly, I think that they're going to be around for a long time because I don't have to commit $80 and 40 hours of my time to get into a title with my friends. I can but make a purchase in the spur of a moment and spend the next 4 hours on a Friday night playing it to forget about it, rinse and repeat ad nauseum.
Dude, this is what I was saying when I was comparing it to party games, right? It's kind of just like, people play Cards Against Humanity or charades or whatever, but like, when was the last time you won Cards Against Humanity, right? It's just about like being able to jump in, not even really need to read the instructions or know the rules, play, laugh with your friends, and then move on to something else.
I hate that about Cards Against Humanity, dude. It's always just some abstract bullshit of us all playing the same card that we've played a million times. And that's where I fear Friendslop is going, is like, yes, they're all novel and interesting now. There's like infinite amount of things that you could do with Friendslop. But after we've done this for the next 5 years, are you guys going to be like, oh, it's sick. We're on a spaceship and we're running out of gas and the guy's got to put gas in the thing before the thing. And then like, we're all just going to be, aren't we going to be annoyed with each other and be like,
I have played and laughed at the pixelated Bukkake card in Cards Against Humanity for about a decade, and I will continue to do so for the next decade. I think as long as it's applied in new and novel ways, it doesn't matter that it's the same mechanic or it's the same set of mechanics. It's about who you're playing the game with. It's not about the game, and I think that's the big piece here. Friendslop is about finding a way to interact and spend time and have fun with friends, and is less about a new and novel experience via a game mechanic.
Like being a capybara simulated in a peaceful environment.
Just vibing. Dude, I mean, like, for me, it's not oversaturated until we see like Call of Duty 8 Friendslop edition. Like once that's out, like then I'll see it. But like Super Battle Golf is the best point proven that it's not oversaturated yet. I mean, as long as new, better products keep coming out month over month, and it feels good. And there's a bunch of people out there playing these games now, getting inspired on making their own version of it. It's getting easier for all those guys to make games. So yeah, I think it's just gonna go crazier from here. It has at least like a 2 or 3x to go. So
there's tons of runway for these kind of games. And I mean, I kind of agree with Knox's disagreement with me that it is a different kind of a game with different expectations. And my comment was more on the 5 to 10 year tail of these. Like, I think we need to see a little bit more depth than we have now in them. Maybe not to the degree of a full 40-hour experience. I didn't mean that, but a little more than we have now. And even the golf game is starting to add a little bit here and there.
All right, guys, next topic. The new head of Xbox is an AI executive with basically zero gaming background. The game mode here is going to be devil's advocate. You have to advocate for why assigning Asha Sharma to the new head of Xbox role is actually a good idea. And then we'll circle back to you and you can give us maybe your real take. But just in case you guys have been living under a rock, she has no shipped titles, no game studio experience, and a shallow Xbox gaming history that she later admitted was actually just her family playing games over the last month, which is why it looked so sporadic whenever the internet got a hold of it. But here's where we're going to go with this. Xbox has been in a rough spot, losing market share, closing studios, struggling to find an identity. Make the case that this outsider with an AI background is exactly what Xbox needs right now. Let's go over to Wills first. Wills, give me the devil's advocate here.
Well, I mean, I think the real take is anything helps at the moment. Like, do something, do anything. And we've had Phil Spencer for a while now, who had the background, had the pedigree, had all of the things that you would want. And was playing Fallout 76 when nobody else was, and respect to him for that. But it didn't work. The decisions that were being made at Xbox weren't aligning with the expectations that players had. And this is coming from someone who loves Xbox, loves their titles, played Infinite, had a lot of fun with it, saw that game just get beaten into the dirt because the team just didn't know what to do with it and didn't know how to rally their fans around their IP and use it effectively. I think what it's going to come down to is can Sharma come in and really bring back the 360 era and talk to those people who advocated for Xbox, who care about Xbox, and bring them back in. Because I feel like the campaign of an Xbox everywhere, we're just gonna, like, we've been talking about the death of Xbox for years now on this show. And I think that people don't want to hear that anymore. People want to hear identity. People want to hear IP. People want to see studios coming out with Xbox titles that they know will be supported. Do I think that that's going to happen? Potentially. I think it's going to start with an appeal to nostalgia, but where it goes in the long run, I'm not really sure.
Michael O'Connor, you're a ex-game studio guy with AI experience. Make a case for why the AI studio person with no games experience is maybe the perfect fit to bring Xbox back to its glory days.
I think the case can be made based on the fact that Sony, Google, Apple, Roblox have been eating Microsoft's lunch for a good period now. And while I think you can strongly make a statement that the whole games industry is at an inflection point as a result of AI, I think it's really clear that Microsoft is at an inflection point and they've got to do something. And I think that this is a very good bet in terms of something that they can do, because I think that ultimately there's a very good chance that AI is going to totally revolutionize every aspect of the games industry. I think bringing someone in who has that specific skill set could be able to align lots of the cool stuff that's happening with all of that kind of like very cool pedigree and history of games that Microsoft's had, but add that kind of just sparkle of innovation that they've lacked. So I genuinely believe it's a good call.
Kevin Lambert, you worked at Microsoft. Tell me, the devil's advocate, why are they making a good decision here?
So a traditional gaming CEO probably leads with like, let's ship these big games. And I think the real challenge here is like, how are we going to hold attention across so many different entry points? And Asha is interesting. She comes from AI and ecosystem thinking, right? And that domain is really all about like optimizing platforms for scale and building flywheels and enabling developers. And I didn't know who she was before all of this. So I just like am frantically doing research on some of her past successes and experiences. And although there's nothing gaming there, she has a pretty decent track record of building good relationships and trust with the people she works for and with. So, I'm a little bit optimistic, and they paired her with Matt Booty, who I actually worked directly with at Microsoft. He was in the gaming org, and I had a lot of, he came from Midway back in the day. And little funny story about him is I added this feature in a Microsoft Solitaire for Teams mode where I'm like, it's a multiplayer game and you're in a Teams chat while you're killing time. And if you get ahead, I wanted the icon to get a flame on it, and so it would go when you start winning. And we showed Matt Booty this demo, and he goes, "He's on fire!" And I'm like, "Yes!" He caught the NBA Jam demo or reference, which was awesome. So Matt, as the right-hand man, I think covers the gaming advisory portion of that, and I think she brings to the table, you know, like sometimes the outsiders are the ones who break the cycles. Like, say what you will about Bobby Kotick coming into Activision because of all the culture problems and everything under his tenure, but like as far as the financial success that they achieved while he was there was actually pretty good. So I think, you know, between her knowledge and the, you know, and the old guard kind of being paired with her, you know, I'm optimistic with a wait and see attitude on this.
Kevin, it sounds like you're describing like a COO to me, like an operations person. Do you think that it's necessary for her to be in the head of role to really be able to drive what you're talking about?
I think the way that Microsoft is structured, you really need someone with the empowerment to be able to do that. So you can't just have an advisor, you know, call all the shots. You need someone who can be leadership over all of those disciplines and say, we're going this way and it's a little crazy, but hear me out. Here's why I think it can work. And although Phil Spencer had some really great wins under his tenure, you know, the way it was trending was into the danger zone. So I think a shakeup is necessary. Honestly, the most interesting part about this whole story was what happened to Sarah Bond, which is probably a separate topic that we can get into later.
Yeah, definitely something there. Maybe whenever we circle back, knock over to you.
Yeah, I'm not even going to need to play devil's advocate here. Listen, the problem with Xbox is sure, gaming titles could be in a little bit of a better position, but the issue there is not gaming-friendly moves, right? You look at Games Pass, it is one of the most gamer-friendly moves in the history of video games. You look at removing console exclusivity. This is pro-gamer. You look at some of the things that they've done, tapping into the old IP. It didn't land well, but it came from a perspective of a pro-gamer movement. Let's give people more of what they want. Execution was lacking, but the fact of the matter is Phil Spencer had 40 years of experience in gaming and drove this business into the dirt. So I think that looking at Asha and saying, well, she doesn't have any experience, how can she do better? Realistically, she can only do better. There's so many things wrong with this business as it stands today that the only way to go is up. I think the biggest piece here that is impactful is that Asha is coming into a business that is not like an EA or a NetEase where she is the CEO of a game studio. She is Xbox CEO. That means she has to manage the live service platform that they've created in Game Pass. She has to manage the manufacturing and distribution and the hardware and the tactics behind the physical product that is Xbox, as well as understanding the operational excellence and giving power back to the studios within the Microsoft umbrella. That's where somebody like Matt Booty comes in as chief creative officer, running the Xbox department and sort of guiding from a perspective of game experience. I think what you have here is somebody who has an excellent track record in operational excellence. She understands how to scale platforms. She understands how to scale businesses. She understands how to make things profitable. And that's what she's doing here. That's why they brought her in. They wanted to remove the pro gamer, the only gamer experience, and bring in somebody who has experience managing massive platforms and managing distribution. Asha's got a long history of being able to do that, even though she's only 37 years old. I think when you pair her with somebody like Matt Booty, who is from the gaming experience, who cares about games, you've got someone in place to run the Xbox business holistically, and you've got someone in place to focus on the gamer's perspective of Xbox. I think that pairing is going to fix the business.
It sounds like a Tim Cook replacing Steve Jobs sort of hire, which I think is a reasonable take. Let's go over to Dub and then to Koji.
Yeah, the more I look into this, the more I love it. I think that Satya here, just from Michael's points of being the AI experience she has and how AI is going to be a big part of gaming over the next foreseeable future, and it already was. And then Kevin's points about how someone with new perspective brings in new innovations to a company that was stagnant and needs that. And looking at Microsoft's history, they've already kind of done this kind of move with Satya Nadella back in 2014, who push them into cloud gaming. And this was a guy that was like really not supposed to be hired as CEO, is what everyone reacted to when he got it then too. And that was a huge pivot for them. There's other companies like Ford, Airbnb, the list goes on. Even a company I worked at saw a lot of innovation come from someone who everyone looking around it was like, this is not the person for the job, but they thought differently. And those different thoughts led to the game-changing innovations the company needed.
OG, over to you, brother.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even playing devil's advocate on this one. I agree with Knock. It's a matter of just like, we're talking about a hardware software company. You know, people think gaming is some sort of sacred cow, but it's like, no, it's just software, right? It's software for fun instead of utility. And so the idea that somebody who's worked at a software company and run software company before can't do this job is absolutely insane, right? Like the leadership, the CEO's job is like leadership and strategy and putting the right people in place to make sure that, like, you know, that she's not the one choosing this game, that game, etc. She's allowing tastemakers to make those choices, right? It's like complaining that the best coaches for a basketball team have to have been all-star basketball players. It's like, no, it's the people with the sort of coaching mindset that make good coaches, you know, playmakers and such, not necessarily the all-star players, right? And so, like, I think it's a bit crazy to think that the only way that you can do this is like if she was a real gamer. The fact that like her Game Pass doesn't have all these games logged is like, oh, she'll never. People are crazy. This is like Gamergate all over again. It's just toxic internet bullshit, to be honest.
Kevin Lambert, circling back to you.
Yeah, I mean, people are saying they brought her in to sunset Xbox, and that's the only reason why they would do that. But I mean, she's already come out there and said we're refreshing our commitment to the hardware, to the console. And you got people saying, no, the games are going to be all AI slop now. And she got right in front of that and said, no, we're totally not going to do that. And I've seen her build trust in what she says in her past. You know, like, her word seems to carry a lot of weight and means a lot. And I've seen it be true. Like, people called out her gamer score as an example, and she got right out there and said that was my family. She didn't try to spin that. She knew people would smell it a mile away if she tried to lie. So, you know, like, we have reason to believe that, you know, until proven otherwise, you know, she means what she says.
Knock, fast forward 5 years down the road for me. What are we looking at with Xbox? What's your prediction for where they find themselves?
I mean, if all goes well, I think they're in a situation where Game Pass is actually a profitable business that no longer cannibalizes the catalog that they've put together. I think one of the issues that you have there is people are excited about Game Pass. Games are excited about Game Pass from a distribution perspective, but a lot of the times that ends up cannibalizing their revenue that they would have had elsewhere. I think if she's successful, it means two things. It means reviving the console, increasing hardware sales, finding something that people are excited about in a strategy that still stays true to the pro gamer movement that Phil has set in place with things like Game Pass and a lack of exclusivity. But I also think it means, how do we profit from and scale the Game Pass business? Because right now the idea is there, but the execution is not. She needs to find a way to increase margins on Game Pass, continue to provide an incredible experience for gamers, while also not stealing every ounce of the money that a developer would have by putting them on Game Pass. So I think that it's a delicate tightrope to walk, but if Xbox can manage it, I think you see a little bit of a renaissance of the Xbox era in 5 years.
Michael O'Connor, 2030. What are we looking back on this era of her as CEO?
I think that when you look at the kind of the console wars and how they play out in cycles, the winning teams there are always able to bring something particularly innovative and consolidate their position and grow their position. It's how Nintendo have always been able to be a smaller player than Microsoft or Sony, but still just keep winning. And I think that this move signals an intent by Microsoft to take this approach that they want to lean into some innovation, some youthful vigor, and I think we'll look back in 4 years, and I think we'll look back positively at this appointment.
Wow, I'm shocked at the almost unanimous positivity across the board. If anybody wants to rain on that parade, let me know. But I'll go back to Kevin Lambert, who I know wanted to speak on Sarah Bond, the seeming obvious choice for them to go to if somebody was going to come from internal to take over this position. She then left the company as a result of somebody else being hired. We don't know the full story there, but some speculation. What's your take on that, Kevin?
Yeah, it's going to all have to be speculative. And I don't like getting into conspiracy theories. Everybody has their own opinion on what happened there. But I mean, she was obviously the next choice. And for her to dip out at this moment means that she was either seen as part of the system that wasn't working. Like when people announce I'm retiring and I'm resigning, they're usually fired. Right. So that you could say that about both of them, both Phil and Sarah, and that they really needed a fresh perspective. But I mean, she had some from what I understand, she had some very strong behind the scenes opinions, and that may have working with her may make that feel a certain way. But I mean, it was really weird that she wasn't even in the announcement. Like she was in the memo, but like when Satya got out there and made all the announcements, like here's what's happening, here's the change, he didn't even acknowledge the heir, what everybody should have understand would be the heir to Xbox. Like, wait a minute, where did Sarah go? And it was very odd, and that makes me feel that it was very abrupt and possibly not all great. I'm curious what the rest of the panel thinks about that.
Can I ask Kevin? Do you know was that? What's your speculation on what those strong opinions might have been that might have pushed her out of that picture?
I can't say these are facts because I never got to work with her when I was there, but apparently a lot of folks said she was, pretty hard to work with, and was drove things very hard and stubbornly. And this is an Xbox, or whatever that ad that came out, not too long ago. Supposedly that was all her, and there were a lot of people who were like, "Man, we were not all in alignment on that, but we did it anyways."
I thought it was also interesting that after she was leaving, she put out a press release saying, "We're so proud of all the things that we did during our tenure." And that just reminded me of, like, I don't know, somebody loses the Super Bowl and they just go like, "Yeah, we really played great out there." It's like not exactly the response you want from somebody who's pretty universally panned, at least over the past 2 or 3 years. It's been very few and far between to find positive news about the direction that the Xbox is going in. We'll move on to the next topic, though. Another mega game studio, Blizzard, announcing Overwatch Rush, a new mobile game. Sentiment score 0 to 10, 10 being you guys are ecstatic about this, 0 being you absolutely hate it. Blizzard is coming with a free-to-play top-down hero shooter built from the ground up from mobile. 4v4 matches, iconic characters like Tracer, Mercy, Reaper, Soldier 76, Lucio, Reinhardt, all in there, all reworked to fit in this new format. Regional testing already underway. No official release date yet, but the simple question, what's your sentiment score on another major release in the past 2 weeks from Blizzard, which is crazy? Let's go back to Will Spangler first.
You know what it's going to be. It's going to be like a 3 from me. I posted under the announcement. This is my highlight of the week. Under the announcement for this game, I posted a YouTube thumbnail, and it's "Pig is eating slop," and I got 10 likes on that. So that made my day. And that's my opinion on it. Yeah, great. Everyone's making a mobile game. I think it's good. I think it's going to attract the exact kind of audience they want. They can. It'll add to their morning routine of waking up, playing Overwatch again, buying Diablo 2 for the 18th time, and that'll make them happy. But I also think it's them trying to get tap into the mobile market, just like they did with Diablo Immortal. We've seen this play out. I want Blizzard to do well. I think that they've done so much for the industry, set up such a great base, but the way that they're making decisions and the priorities that they have right now aren't exciting to me. And to Michael's point, the teams that are gonna really, we're in a downturn right now. It's not a great time to be in gaming. Making a mobile version of your hero shooter that's been dying for 10 years is not how we pull ourselves out of that. Innovation is going to do that, and that's not really what I'm seeing from Blizzard.
Is there another 4v4 top-down shooter thing on mobile? This didn't scream to me like, oh, I've seen 100 of these. Knock, I see you shaking your head. Go ahead.
You know, it's funny that we're off the backs of the last topic with Asha, but there's a comment on the story, the announcement of Johanna being named executive or the lead there at Activision Blizzard. Non-story, executive level doesn't need to be a WoW player. They need to be a good leader. She's been a great leader. Blizzard has turned things around from a gaming sentiment and a gamer sentiment perspective. They were in a position a couple of years ago where Call of Duty was in the dumps. Overwatch was in the dumps. It looked like every other title they had was in the dumps. Now, with the exception of Call of Duty, things seem to be turning around. If anything, Call of Duty is going in the other direction. But notably, Johanna left Call of Duty to take over the Blizzard leadership role. So maybe there's some connection there. I think at the end of the day, when you're a studio that has this beloved IP and you take that IP down a path that players don't want and they hate, you open the door for competition. We saw Marvel Rivals come in and kind of eat Overwatch lunch a little bit. But when you remedy and rectify some of those errors, gamers come back. And I think it's a reminder that if you deliver things that people actually want to play, people will play it. You're seeing that play out now with Diablo. You're seeing it play out with Overwatch. You're going to see it play out with Overwatch Rush. I think it's a good, lightweight way to get people into the Overwatch franchise.
Dub, are you playing this? A top-down 4v4 version of Overwatch?
Only if you like make me. I really, I hope you don't too. I mean, like, I'm so mid on this one. Like, I guess that's a 5. My friends don't play these titles. I don't play this title. Like, great that they have a mobile for it. I mean, I just wonder if this is going to be the meta for everyone. You know, it's like, oh, we have success on PC. We've established a fan base. Now we need to make sure that they can even play while they're taking a shit. You know, and like, then the mobile game comes out. So like, I guess cool, but like really, I hope it doesn't become a template for everyone and we just get surrounded by everyone playing a crappier version of their favorite video game on the phone.
Knock, I know you and I were both like, we're going to play the fuck out of this. What's your rebuttal to Dub saying that this is not what he wants to see?
It's such a Western-centric way of thinking. Most of the world plays games on mobile, right? The most commonly used device for playing games is mobile, and I think tapping into that audience is a net positive. I mean, sometimes you look at the panel and you go, okay, we don't like Friendslop, we don't like remakes, we don't like games that gamers actually want to play. We want innovation for the sake of innovation, and that's the path that Blizzard took. It's Overwatch 2. We're going to change up some game modes. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. It didn't work. And now they see a growth in player base. They see an increase in spend. The game studio is healthier now than it was 2 or 3 years ago when they made this mandate to rapidly change everything. I think it's okay for people to want to play games that they want to play. I think forcing innovation for the sake of innovating is stupidity, but every once in a while it lands and you have something that is incredible. And let's not forget, that's how Overwatch started in the first place, right? I think that this type of DNA is a great thing. It's a studio who's shown they're willing to experiment. It's also a studio who has shown once that experiment hits, they want to make sure that people continue playing that game for a decade. How many multiplayer live service titles can you say have been around since 2016? I'll give you a hint. There's like 8 of them.
Kevin, my Eastern friend Knock giving us the Western
Kevin, go ahead.
All right, I'll take a slight contrarian view here. 6.5 out of 10. And it's not shade. I would call it cautious curiosity, maybe. I think top-down for mobile is really smart. They're not pretending touch controls can handle headshots at 60 frames per second. They're designing for the device with smaller teams, faster matches, cleaner chaos. I think that's good mobile game design. But here's the tension, right? Overwatch as a brand has been through some things, you know? I don't think the trust is automatic like it used to be with Blizzard back in the old days. So when they say things like, hey, check out this free-to-play mobile spinoff, I think part of the community here is monetization update.
Yeah.
And the real question is whether it plays well, right, at the end of the day. So it's whether Overwatch can become a multi-format, multi-platform IP, or if it's only going to work at like a surface level. You know, now it totally can work if it feels native, if it feels tight, if it's built for phones, and then the input matches the game design. I think it'll cook. But if it feels like Overwatch in mobile clothing that doesn't fit, I mean, we'll know really soon. But that's my wait and see.
Back to Wills, then we'll go to Michael and Koji.
Sorry, calling Overwatch 2 innovation for the sake of innovation is one of the most baffling things I've ever heard. The problem with that game was that it was Overwatch again, with tiny tweaks and little changes. I think the mobile, them going to mobile is, great, but like we have to talk about how mobile games get seen. Mobile game distribution is throwing hundreds of millions of dollars into a pit and seeing what it spits back out. And I know this game is going to do well. I know this game is going to get 100,000, 200,000, 300, millions and millions of players. Like it's going to do that very, very quickly because Blizzard has the money, and it's going to, get the best monetization people on. It's going to have all of the microtransactions. You're going to have to pay $8 just to play as the hero that you want, and that's going to be great. And that's going to be super exciting for the people that get into those games. But the problem is that it's like that's not exciting. Like that's not changing how players are interacting with the brand. And to Kevin's point, to say that like Overwatch is back after like 3 weeks of this kind of hype train that we've had, I think it's a bold call. I think we've seen it hundreds and hundreds of times where teams, they'll come out with a big update to a game that's a few years old. There'll be a massive surge of people coming back, and then people are going to go back and to their old games. I hope for Blizzard's sake that this Overwatch revival is long term, but the fact that they're releasing this game alongside shows that they're worried. And shows that they're not confident in Overwatch PC's ability to monetize on its own.
It feels like putting it on a new platform is exactly how you expand the IP and the brand and the way that people engage with it. Michael O'Connor, what's your take on Overwatch Rush?
Low sentiment score here for me, like a 2. I find it. You know what? It's not because like the game's probably going to be really good, and I think it looks like an interesting game, but it reflects something that like we've been watching in the games industry over the last decade, which is a kind of a conservative way of thinking about introducing new IP. These big studios and these big corporations used to take gambles and create new stories and create new feelings, and that risk has just been reduced and shattered over time. And instead of taking that approach, they look to repackage things a little bit how people make a movie that's okay and they smash like 6 sequels or something like that, and that kind of just bums me out because there's so much amazing IP out there. There's so many new fresh takes that you could take. But yeah, that's not to kind of piss on this particular game because I actually do have some optimism about the game, but it's more about what it reflects that kind of troubles me somewhat.
Koji, over to you. What's your sentiment score here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like a 4 because I'm not that interested in playing Team Brawl Stars or whatever. But ultimately, I agree with Michael. Like my take on this is like, if it was really that good, like, could they just make it its own thing instead of tying it to an IP? Nock talked about Western mindset. I think the Western mindset is to like take every ounce of juice out of the orange, right? It's just kind of like, if something is making money, we have to squeeze it for dear life for everything. And it can't just be, here's a thing we enjoy, now let's make a new thing that somebody else can enjoy. It's like, okay, you enjoyed that, let me ram some more of the shit down your throat, and that's kind of what this feels like. I wish that we were able to like do new things, right? You see it in all forms of media. Like gaming it's not exclusive to gaming. Like when the Russo brothers are talking about how Captain America Winter Soldier is like the new 3 Days of the Condor or 3 Days of the Condor or whatever, I'm like, all right, brother, like get the fuck out of here. If your movie was actually good, you wouldn't need to wrap it in Marvel bullshit. Anyway, I think that like we need new things. Like I'm tired of reheating things and then showing it to people at different angles and being like, huh?
I completely agree with the oversaturation and usage of IP, but I disagree with most of this panel. I'm giving this like an 8 or a 9. I'm actually really optimistic about it. And I think of all the examples of IP that's been squeezed to death, which I would put Pokemon and stuff at the forefront of that. I think that this is actually a great example of an IP that's been underutilized. People love Tracer. They love Junkrat. They love Winston from this IP. Reinhardt. There's a bunch. Mercy. I see this cosplay all the time. And there's really only been Overwatch and then Overwatch 2, which was a failure. So you're talking about 0 spin-offs of anime, 0 spin-offs of a Netflix show, 0 spin-offs of anything except for now this mobile game. And I think that this is going to be one of the most successful utilizations of a Blizzard IP outside of just a straight up another sequel to an exact game replica that we've seen. Knock, over to you, bud.
Listen, the absolute irony of this studio is trying to squeeze everything out of an IP that they have existing in exactly one location, while the entirety of this panel are Nintendo fanboys, is not lost on me, right? Nintendo has used 5 IPs across, we counted this last week, 400 different video game titles alone out of the 5 IPs that are Super Mario, Zelda, Donkey Kong, Pokemon, and there was one other, I think it was Kirby, right? They are the king of recycling IP. To your point, Sam, the one thing that people have repeatedly over the course of the last decade have asked for from Overwatch is give us more stories, give us more ways to interact with this IP, give us something more than just the cutscenes when you introduce a new champion or a new hero within the game. And they're doing that. They brought in storytelling through a bunch of mixed media in the game experience themselves. They're giving you new ways to actually play the game and experience the Overwatch universe. They're not recycling Overwatch. They built a brand new title from the ground up that leverages a lot of those characters with a couple of similar mechanics. I think that this is a perfect way to expand the IP, and I think that they need to take it further. But it's ridiculous to call them out for squeezing the juice out of the orange on a title that exists as a standalone title in the only thing that exists in its universe, while being a fan of the 120 Pokemon games that Nintendo has pumped out.
I'll go back to Koji quickly and then over to Wills.
Yeah, Knock, first of all, don't misrepresent me. I am the OG on the corner of Pokemon is a bad game, and I don't like Nintendo at all. And I can't wait for you to tell me all the deep lore that you've learned about Overwatch after playing this fucking mobile game.
I've actually, for what it's worth, Koji, I've actually not only participated in both of the ARGs when they released Sombra and a new character back in 2020. I think it was the one thing that they should have done a ton more of. I've actually also watched every single clip that exists in Overwatch as part of this new storytelling era. There are tons of people like me who are attached to those characters, but don't have anything to latch onto outside of just playing the game.
Yeah, but we're talking about this mobile game, though. We're not talking about...
We're talking about proliferation of IP and bringing that IP to new people. And one of the ways to do that is by being on the platform where the most human beings on the planet play games.
Man, I can't wait for that Overwatch trading card pack rips to start hitting, dude. You're going to fucking love that, too.
That I will, actually, yeah.
I just can't believe that this is the take whenever there's so many characters from this universe. As I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, like, I didn't even name a bunch of the most popular ones. Diva, Genshi, Hansa. There's so many characters that people love from Overwatch and no way for them to engage with them at all outside of this game that, again, isn't even really a good vessel for engaging with characters you like as a 6v6, whatever. Wills, over to you.
The way when you start talking about like the Overwatch kind of IP, it reminds me a lot of Avatar, and the kind of cultural dissonance that has occurred with Avatar and with Overwatch. Everyone knows Overwatch, everyone's played Overwatch, everyone's seen Avatar, everybody knows Avatar. No one gives a shit what is actually happening in those universes. Like it hasn't had a cultural impact at the level that it needs to warrant this kind of IP proliferation. And I think that, our next topic, I think, is going to go into why exactly, Knock, you see a lot of Mercy cosplays. And it's not because they're targeting gamers. They're targeting a whole different kind of interactive content consumer. And that's where I think it's going wrong. And I think that speaks to a wider issue in games that we can touch on next.
Rich, man. Most people don't even know who Sam Worthington is. You're dead right. And everyone's looking at me with like glazed over eyes right now after I mentioned that name. That's the star of those Avatar films.
Yeah, who cares? I don't know.
Exactly.
I know who Diva is. I want to play more Diva shit.
I literally watched the third one last night.
I was going to say,
first time
I'm not going to lie to you. For a minute there, I thought Wills was off his rocker and talking about the only avatar that actually matters. I wholeheartedly agree with the avatar with Sam Worthington. If you were talking about Last Airbender, we would have to throw hands right now.
I obviously would have qualified that. With all due respect to
that's what I was like. Oh no.
I'm going to go to Kevin and Michael in just a second, but one more thing to expand this conversation a little bit. Diablo Immortal, their first real approach to mobile as Blizzard, made $500 million in revenue in year one of that game being released. They later released Warcraft Rumble, which was kind of a fiasco and has later been sunset. But with that being said, they clearly see the potential in mobile to expand some of their IPs. Let's go to Kevin and then to Michael.
Diablo Immortal is actually a pretty good case study for like, can they ship a good game that resonates with mobile, that takes good mobile game practices and make it successful. So that's good. But IP extension to mobile doesn't always work. And the example I'll pull on here is Forza, which is not lovable characters and plushies and all of that. But when they tried to make Forza Street, for those of you guys who played that game, they're like, they tried their hand in a mobile game and it didn't hit because the game wasn't good, right? So I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it just comes back to, is the game good on mobile, good for mobile, with good mobile game design, taking advantage of the things that mobile does well, you know, at this size with this input mechanism. And if it does, it'll be awesome.
Yeah, and I was a huge Diablo fan. I was kind of excited for Immortal at the very least. I actually didn't like the game at all because it was so optimized for mobile. But with that being said, still a massive financial success and clearly hasn't really harmed the rest of the franchise. People are still buying the Diablo 2 thing. People are still buying Diablo 4, etc. Michael O'Connor, over to you.
Yeah, so it's 10 years since Blizzard released original IP. They haven't released an original IP since Overwatch. 10 years is a pretty long time in the video games industry. In that period, they've had loads of great successes. But they had Odyssey, I think it was, which was in development, which was a massive budget survival game, which looked amazing, and that was going to be the next big original IP. But sadly, it just became too risky to inject new IP into the industry. And then after the Microsoft acquisition, that's when they canned that. So, that's just a kind of, I suppose, just trying to qualify why it would be nice to see some more risk from some of these big corporates in regards to how we're presented with these beautiful story worlds.
Yeah, definitely a topic for another day, but also we're seeing Riot Games shut down something. They also gave up on Hytale, and that was later released as its own independent thing and is doing fairly well. But they just didn't want their name on it. 2XKO released and is kind of a flop, but that's using IP that is beloved and it still isn't working. A lot of interesting things around these mega studios trying to make it work. With that said, we'll move on. Sony, speaking of big companies shutting things down, is shutting down Bluepoint Games. What's the word for this one? Bluepoint Games is gone. Sony shut it down, and they were the creators of Shadow of the Colossus, God of War 1 and 2, Uncharted, Metal Gear Solid 3. 70 people are out of a job, and here's what's making this one sting. The studio didn't necessarily fail. They were handed a live service God of War project, which as a big God of War fan, I would have creamed myself over. And then it got canceled and Sony reversed course on that live service. Then they couldn't get anything else greenlit and PlayStation just left one of their best studios sitting idle. What's the word for this one? Knock, I think you have a lot of feelings on this one. Let's go over to you. Oh, excuse me. Yes, Wills, you're right. They remastered the games. They aren't the original creator of those games. Go ahead.
The word is bullshit, dude. They bring in this studio to be the in-house remaster studio. They are buying expertise. They want to go through a bunch of this IP and deliver excellent versions of that game that people can re-experience or experience for the first time in a modern format. We saw them execute to this on a very high degree with Shadow of the Colossus. People were excited about this acquisition. 2022 comes around and we hear from Sony that they have a mandate to deliver 12 live service games by 2025, and they then give their in-house remake studio a live service game, which is God of War. They then sunset that alongside 7 other live service games that they had planned before 2025, and then refused to greenlight any of the remakes that the studio put together and wanted to build. and then they fired the studio. I think that this was a massive mismanagement of an incredible talent, of an incredible studio, of something that could have been great, giving people the ability to experience titles for the first time or re-experience a title in a modern format. And they screwed it up by forcing live service into something where live service did not belong. This was an absolute mismanagement of one of the best resources they could have had.
Koji, over to you then to Wills.
No shocker that Doc is very saddened by a studio that reheats games and serves them up to people. Getting shut down. No, I'm giving him a hard time. I'm joking because I actually agree with him wholeheartedly on this topic. I think it's crazy. Like, so these guys are known for putting together collections and doing remakes of games, and then to hand them something like a live service game is like you're setting them up for failure. You know, it's like getting one of the best goalies in. I'm sorry, I'm going to use a hockey analogy here. I know that you guys are Americans, so you probably don't watch hockey, but just go with me here.
Yeah,
I mean, we are.
You go ahead, Koji. I would love to hear your perspective.
We're technically better at hockey than you, but okay.
I'm surprised you guys even know that. If it wasn't on the Olympics, you would have no idea. But it's like getting the best goalie in the league and then being like, okay, you are our star forward now. You know, it doesn't make any sense, right? Like, let these guys do what they're good at, or hire somebody else to run the live services, but don't hand them something that they have no sort of business being in, and then being like, why isn't this better than it should be? I think it's ludicrous, and I don't think it's fair.
Just a small, scrappy company like Sony. I'm sure they didn't have anybody else to work on it. Wills, over to you.
I think from a corporate perspective, this is what we've come to expect. This is, the headline that we've read for the last few years. But I think it's the timing and the messaging is really interesting here, from a game developer's perspective. And we chatted about this a little bit last week during the AI topic. But being a specialized game developer, like a graphical enhancer or a 3D light rigger or a background art designer, that is not a career anymore. The people you cannot make a full living wage from doing these things because they've become so much easier. And the fact that this was a studio that remastered games and made games fresh without making whole new games, that this is something that I think is going to become infinitely more easy as a result of AI and as a result of increased developer capabilities. You do not need a whole studio for projects like this now. These jobs can be done by much leaner teams on much smaller budgets. And I think it would be amiss to not just talk about the role that is probably playing in this decision. I think that as a game developer, your best bet now is to go and build something new, and as opposed to leaning on an over specialized ability, because what we have seen is that AI can't make new game mechanics. AI can't put in that touch that and you experience at the human level. It can make the lighting shinier. It can make the backgrounds more HD, and that's exactly what I think Sony is telling us here.
Michael O'Connor, what do you think? Is this is Bluepoint being done an injustice, or is this just another bullet from AI?
I think it's frustrating is the word I would use. I agree with Koji that it looks like a poor deployment of resources and a poor enactment of strategy. With that said, it's not overly surprising, is it? They were acquired in 2021. In that period, we haven't seen the type of growth that was expected in 2021 in player base. Really, the industry hasn't grown anywhere near what, when they made that acquisition, they were planning something considerably different for where the industry was going to go. So it's one of those things you buy at the top and then you have to suffer when the market's not so good. And unfortunately, teams like that will continue to close. Actually, this is a trend that is going to accelerate, not just because of where the games industry is at, but also due to the changing nature of manufacturing a video game and what AI has done to it. Frustrating, but a sad reality, I suppose, in some sense.
Let's go to Kevin, then we'll circle back to Knock.
Dude, I have to talk just for a second about the original games here. Eco, Shadow of the Colossus, and one that wasn't made by them, but made by the same game designer. I'm going to butcher his name, Fumito Ueda. The Last Guardian. These games were incredible, like just absolutely incredible. The Last Guardian, if you haven't played it, made me bawl like a baby. I would highly recommend it, although be prepared for a maddening third-person camera if you do. So the studio Bluepoint that made the remakes, they didn't miss, man. Those remakes were gorgeous. Did you guys see those? Like, to me, it feels like you get plastic surgery, you look in the mirror and you're like, shit, I look hot. And the first thing you do is you fire your plastic surgeon. Like, who does that, man? Like, you don't shut down the studio that makes the games look better than you remember them back in the day. I feel so bad for those guys because they didn't lose to the market. It feels like they got caught in some kind of corporate CrossFit. Like, today we're live service. Actually, no, we're not. And also you're all unemployed. Like, F that closure, man.
Hey, they didn't fire their plastic surgeon. They said, okay, now you're a robotics engineer.
And then
they fired them.
Yeah.
You're not a good robotics engineer. What the fuck?
I think one thing that is important to mention here is that these were remakes, right? So this wasn't a studio that was just remastering a product. They completely rebuilt, especially Shadow of the Colossus, from the ground up. They included new assets, they included new mechanics, included new controls. They remade that game. So this is clearly a studio that has the capacity to take a game from 0 to 1. They have the capacity to deliver on an excellent experience. And I think what's frustrating here is you bring them in for remakes, then a year later you say you're doing a live service game, then you say no, you're not doing a live service game, then you continue to ship remakes while booting out the studio that you brought in specifically for remakes. It is a disaster from a management POV. And to Kevin's point, this is a studio that just got caught in the crossfires, right? They're not missing a skill set. They are not incapable of delivering a quality game. What has happened here is that they were incapable of giving a lane and a direction. They wanted to build a spin-off of Ghost of Tsushima. They wanted to build a couple of other titles that they had pitched. Things just would not get past. That's why they ended up being cut. It's unfortunate.
If only it was a mobile top-down shooter of God of War.
Then we would have had 3 or 4 or 5 remakes.
Dub, what's the word on this one?
Dude, it's sandbagging. This is actually the brilliant play by PlayStation here because they essentially saw this golden team. They saw a bunch of they didn't see a way of being able to use them. They were like, nah, we don't want to remake anything, but we definitely don't want these guys remaking any of our competitor games. So we're going to make sure we just sit them on the bench for at least like indefinitely. And they basically ran the course as long as they could. And overall, I think this was probably brilliant strategy. At the end of the day, they reduced competition happening against them and, ended up probably not having to spend a ton compared to like actually going and having these go try to remake an IP they didn't want to remake ultimately.
Just firing money into the sun to spite Xbox.
Damn right.
Let's move on. Video games are losing the attention war to gambling, porn, and crypto. Explain this one like I'm a shareholder. Tell me why I should be willing to hold Activision Blizzard stock, Microsoft stock, why I should be willing to hold Unity stock, who's been notoriously underperforming. According to Matthew Ball's report, gaming isn't losing to other games. It's losing to things that aren't games at all. U.S. console and PC spend is down 8% since 2021, and that money isn't going necessarily to Netflix. Americans spent $5 billion on OnlyFans last year. U.S. sports betting losses alone hit $17 billion in 2025, a 35x from 2019. And here's the thing that should make everybody in the industry uncomfortable. iGaming and online casinos now represent 21% of all U.S. video game spend. The report's conclusion isn't that players chose casinos over gaming on Tuesday morning. It's that on a Friday night, gaming is getting a smaller and smaller slice of the same 2 hours in the same wallet. The industry spent years worrying about Netflix and Spotify. Maybe the real competition was casinos on your phone. So tell me, I'm a shareholder. Why should I be excited to hold gaming stock? Koji, over to you.
Well, number one, we are incapable of coming up with new ideas. If this episode, if this week's Gamified has told us anything, it's that like nobody cares about new things. And so if you're a gaming CEO and you're trying to explain to people why they should hold the stock, it's because Hollywood cannot come up with new ideas. And what we've seen over and over again is when they, reheat ideas from gaming and put them into movies and TV shows, those games like fly off the shelves, right? So long as you have some mixed media IP plays in your gaming arsenal, then it's more than worthwhile. I also think that, like we talked about Friendslop, right? Like, how do we re-engage people in this sort of like age where everyone's disconnected? I mean, we're all taking this call together, but from our homes, right? It's like, how do you spend time with people now? And inevitably, I think it's going to be through gaming. Because like, I mean, I enjoy doing this with you guys, but would I rather us like yell at each other while playing walkabout mini golf? Absolutely. So like, I think that like gaming still is the future, but the way gaming is going to look in the future is very different than what it looks like now.
Yeah, and shout out to the casual games too. Jackbox games is what I played with all of my friends that were not gamers during COVID. Let's go over to Will's.
I think that this is the industry reaping what it has sown for the last 10 years, because we had the kind of big gaming boom with mobile. And then as soon as games got onto mobile, and obviously it's been happening in other areas as well, but I think mobile really ratcheted it up. It was like, oh, what if we put a little bit of gambling in our games to increase player retention? Oh, what if we make our characters extra smutty and, let's, appeal to the more Guna player base? Oh, what if we, put hyper financialized assets to appeal to the crypto player trader base? And we've done all of these things. We've invited in, not invited in, but we've tried to appeal to all of these audiences, and then realized that games are never going to beat out those base products. I think if you want to make a fan service porny type content, great. You're always going to lose to the actual porn. You want to make some gambling style content in your game, you're going to lose to casinos. You're going to lose to sports betting apps who know how to do that better than you do. And I think it's really important that moving forward as a gaming company, you need to focus on targeting gamers, because gamers will spend on games, and they will spend consistently, and they will spend reliably and enthusiastically if they're presented with high quality content. And I think Friendslop games are a great example of that. People are willing to spend $8 a week, $20 a month on these new titles and these repetitive experiences that are solely focused on the joy of game, without needing to kind of, I don't want to say corrupt it, but corrupt that experience with these other things that are inevitably going to pull the player base away. I mean, we've all been experienced in Web3. We've seen the difficulties that come with bringing a misaligned audience into your player base and trying to cater to both. It does not work. And this is, and I think these stats line up with the way that people have been acting. And I think that what we need to see is a reshift and a refocusing on core gamers, core gameplay content, and making stuff for gamers. The gamers want to play, and I think that's where we're really going to start to see that differentiation, and we won't be having a conversation of why are people jacking off more than they're playing WoW.
I see everybody talking about innovation of gameplay mechanics, but we do see some stuff like Friendslop, like we talked about earlier, coming about as a result of new innovative gameplay. But with that being said, what if we made something interesting around how we acquire users? Because part of it is user acquisition is eating up more and more of the $200 billion that happens in gaming. It's now $60 billion just goes to Meta and Google every single year. What if we innovated ways to get our games in the players' hands? Michael O'Connor, I'm going to you.
Yeah, I mean, that would be great, of course. Like, we want as much innovation as possible when it comes to how we deliver games and distribute games. The thing is there's no one games industry anymore. Like the role of a AA studio in the West is different to a Chinese mobile publisher, to anyone who's building stuff in Roblox. They're almost like totally different industries. And then I think it's an interesting kind of topic, because there is this kind of attention demand, and games have leaned into grab aspects of gambling and grab aspects of social media, and to kind of integrate them into the gaming experience. But likewise, so have gambling has leaned into video games. Social media has certainly leaned into video games. So there's this kind of oddly symbiotic relationship happening across this attention economy, which I think is really interesting. I do believe that there's going to be continually amazing opportunity inside of games, namely because although there's some stagnation and there's issues across the board, we are still seeing massive player growth. Especially in the rest of the world. US has stagnated somewhat, but in the rest of the world, I think this report actually that discusses that. So I think because of that, we will see more opportunity. It's going to be so much more competitive than it ever was because the barrier to entry has become so much lower. But yeah, the last thing I remember reading in this report when I had a look was, which I thought was a crazy stat. In the US, the gambling industry had grown by 35 times over the course of the last 7 years. That's a mind-boggling level of growth. But yeah, I'll leave it there.
Yeah, one thing that stuck out to me about that in particular is like I probably shouldn't admit to this on camera, but I used to use Bovada as like a European resident with a VPN, and so I think so much of that growth is just it's legal now, and so people were already spending it, but now we're spending it in a way that's trackable, whereas before it was like just going into somebody else's statistics. Kevin Lambert, over to you.
All right, let me try to phrase this like I'm talking to shareholders. So yes, gaming is competing for attention across sports betting, casinos, crypto, and adult platforms. This is true. Those categories are absorbing discretionary dollars and, more importantly, emotional energy. But that does not mean that gaming is structurally broken. Those other experiences monetize volatility and spikes, whereas gaming monetizes time, which is more durable than spikes, right? Players are not forming lifelong relationships with slot machines. They do that with franchises, characters, ecosystems, and sustainable entertainment, which builds habits, right? And communities and identity. Do you believe that gaming can continue evolving beyond retention tricks and move towards deeper engagement? I sure as hell do. And I don't know, this feels like a classic competitive pressure story. And the best thing about that is pressure forces innovation. So the companies that adapt to this attention economy without becoming casinos themselves are the ones worth watching. And that is why not only am I buying back our shares, but I'm also launching a crypto coin, and you guys can get in on it.
Thanks for that, Kevin. Dub, over to you, and then Koji. I don't know if you're just adjusting that mic nervously, or if you have something you want to chime in with.
I don't know, dude. Sign me up for like 2%, Kevin. I'll be right there. But I feel similarly to Wills and Michael earlier. Like, I think both of these categories that are kind of like eating the lunch of gaming have just a evolutionary life cycle that becomes gaming themselves. We've seen crypto starting to have better gaming products. They'll continue to have more gaming products. We'll just grow the gaming pie as that grows itself. Same for iGaming. I believe people aren't going to want to play slots forever. They'll want a more gamified version of those slots. And man, if I could play some sort of RPG open world pornographic World of Warcraft, I'd probably be all about it. So, like I'm looking forward to seeing how these industries evolve and just gamify more. And I think that's just going to improve our gaming industry, even though it feels like a slump right now.
Yo, just wait until Dub learns about the mods folder in Steam, man. Then he's gonna get his wish.
Yeah, it's just called Skyrim. Let's go back. Koji, go ahead and then knock.
Yeah, man. I don't know. Gaming is for post-nut clarity. Honestly, I think that like it's true, right? Like what we are asking people to do is waste time, and those of us making games are literally just building toys. Like that's all we're doing at the end of the day, and we want to believe it's some like high-minded. It's different than like somebody playing Pogs or I don't know, knitting a sock or whatever. Like it's the same shit. And so the fact that this stuff is eating into people's attentions, like no shit, it's this thing. It's this thing that we all look at. And I'm sure a bunch of us were looking at it while we're on the show right now, talking to each other. Right. And when you make other things like pornography, like crypto, like gambling more accessible, of course that's going to take away from gaming. And the fact is that like all of those things that I just mentioned are more fun on your phone than gaming is, right? Gaming is a thing that you buckle up and do in front of a computer, in front of a screen for like a fully rich immersive experience. And I know I'm going over time, but things like movies, like the things that like used to matter that require a full amount of attention are just dying, right? No one reads anymore. No one goes to the movies. It's all just like, what can I get on my phone right now? And this is just a byproduct of that.
Because of that, Koji, do you think that $200 billion market cap that we cite so often is going to go down over the next 5 years?
I think it's just going to change, right? Like with AI tooling and allowing people to sort of like democratize, like the best idea wins. I think we're going to see innovations in gaming that are going to bring back a surge. But like I've been saying throughout this whole show, what gaming is going to look like 5 years from now is almost indistinguishable from what it is today.
Let's go to Knock and then to Wills.
Civilization started about, anywhere between 4,000 and 6,000 years ago, and right alongside it were games. I think literally the minute that humans didn't have to worry about eating and getting enough food to eat and running away from predators, we started playing games. That's not going to change, right? It is akin to human nature to play games. I think what you're seeing now that nobody really talks about is gambling is a recession and economic indicator. And the reason why gambling is exploding in the US the way that it is because the US is in the worst financial state it's been since COVID. And prior to that, since the Great Recession in 2008. And I think that this is something that you start to see. There's something called the lipstick indicator where people begin to make more vain purchases, small purchases here and there on things like makeup and scratch cards and gambling, the worse they feel economically. And people, especially in North America, have not felt this poorly economically for at least a decade, probably a little bit longer. So I think what you're seeing in the rise of gambling is, yes, it's more accessible. Yes, it's legal in more places, but also economic conditions are just worse. We have literally played games from the minute we didn't have to literally find everything we ate to survive. Humans will always play games. It's in our nature. I don't think that gambling is a real long-term sustainable threat to gaming.
Wills, over to you.
Yeah, just to kind of touch on the UA point, because I think that that's also something that's not talked about enough when we talk about mobile gaming, because everyone talks about the gaming boom and, when mobile hit, gaming skyrocketed and everyone was a potential gamer and all of those things. And then but the system that has been built now for, getting games distributed on mobile is so dysfunctional in how it actually reaches gamers and the incentive mechanisms between the advertisers, the game producers, and the platforms that show the ads. It's all kinds of fucked up. I think someone said it was like $60 billion straight to Microsoft and Google's pockets, and then there are 20 other organizations that are taking another 40 billion on top of that for no reason at all. Like the black boxes that go on in mobile UA are ridiculous and have held that platform back from really being able to tap into those innovative experiences and those immersive experiences that Koji was talking about. It is a loop that does not reward innovation or quality gameplay. It rewards ad clicks. We've gone to a point where the incentives are so malformed that we're designing ads, and then based on what ads gets clicked, we're building bullshit games out the back of that to sell more ad space. It is so many levels of fucked up. And I think I think all of the numbers that we see around, how big is gaming? It's $200 billion. It's $300 billion. All of those numbers are are pumped up for the sake of mobile advertising. And we saw what happened to gaming when IDFA came out and got hit. It was a massive crash to the industry as a whole. And I think there's a lot of people who have a lot of incentives and a lot of they're encouraged to protect that system, and even though it's not sustainable and it's not encouraging growth. So I think that we are due for another big hit on the distribution side, and I think it's going to happen when we find new ways to distribute games on mobile, and that's where gaming's really going to grow, and I think there's a massive opportunity there.
Show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. Over to Michael O'Connor for one more take.
I just think that we're going to see continued growth. The stats look that way. But also, I think the supply of games is going to grow massively, and that's going to shift all the power dynamics inside of video games. But we can look a little bit at what happened to music when the manufacturing of music, the cost of it plummeted, when the democratization of Pro Tools and the ability for everyone to record albums happened. Everyone said the music industry was going to collapse because of it. It didn't. Actually recorded annual growth year on year, up to this year. It just changes the whole industry into a kind of a totally different beast. But I think it's almost impossible for me not to be optimistic about that.
I love that. That's a fantastic analogy and a great note for us to move on from that topic on the subscription contradiction. Nintendo pulls games out of their subscription model. Microsoft is trying to pack more in. Red flag or green flag the games industry's relationship with subscriptions. Two subscription stories this week, both getting heat, pulling in completely opposite directions. Nintendo is releasing Fire Red and Leaf Green on Switch as $20 standalone purchases, not included in Nintendo Switch Online. No physical copy, and Pokemon Home compatibility wasn't confirmed, which pissed people off. Their official explanation was, we thought it would be fun. Meanwhile, Microsoft is reportedly exploring bundling World of Warcraft, Fallout First, and Minecraft Realms directly into Game Pass Ultimate, which just raised its price to $30 a month. One company is charging more by keeping things out. The other is charging more by cramming things in. Both are getting roasted. Red flag or green flag, knock.
Red flag all around. Listen, I think I said this earlier in the show, but the Game Pass has been an incredible boon to gamers today. I think if it goes down the route of every other subscription service in history, what you see is a limited category over time, an increase in pricing, and then a degradation of that platform. The enshittification of streaming has already begun, and you're going to see that happen in video games as well. I think these two teams are taking a wildly different approach. Game Pass is not doing well. Nintendo is crushing it. So Game Pass naturally is shoving as much of their own IP into that product to get more people to subscribe to it. They'll figure out a way to milk more money out of that and share more money with developers somewhere down the line. But right now, it's how do we make sure that the business does not continue to hemorrhage? In the case of Nintendo, we talked about this before, but here's the 121st version of Pokemon. It is literally a remake of a remake of a remake, and it doesn't even tie into modern Pokemon architecture. There's no Pokemon Home associated with this game. You're paying $20 for Fire Red instead of Fire Red, and you're not even going to get all the things that come with a modern Pokemon game. I think it's another example of the way that Nintendo sees consumers, and they see them as a piggy bank.
Koji, over to you.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with Knock on this one. I think that the reason why, first of all, I see it as a red flag as well, but the reason why we're seeing this out of Nintendo is because they don't have to, right? They've proven time and time and time again that they don't need to win the hardware race. They don't need to have the best hardware. And people are willing to buy the same games over and over and over again in every generation of console. So why, if that's true, this is the invisible hand of the market, like fucking jerking players off here. It's just like players will constantly pay them for the same things over and over again. Why would they give it away for free? It makes no sense. They're not known for being like the friendliest to gamers to begin with, right? Like they shut down people's like pet projects, and they don't like anything that even remotely infringes on their IP. So like, why would we now be like, hey, you should do more for us, when people don't care and are willing to give them more money? And I don't know. I think it's just crazy.
Dub, I'm going to you. Are you buying or selling subscriptions? Absolutely. In shitificating games.
I mean, I'll set up 20 emails and try 2-week free trials 2 weeks at a time before I'll ever pay for any sort of subscription. But I think this is a green flag. Ultimately, this is them pioneering a business model and figuring out by changing the inventory, and changing different tactics. Like if they were just shipping the same strategy, same model, I'd almost be more concerned right now. As AI is taking, like, the market needs change in all directions. So for them to take major changes while still running the thing is a very good sign to me. And I just want to see, even crazier things come out of left field next.
Kevin Lambert, can I get some Project O packs, Origins TCG, the newly renamed, in Xbox Game Pass in 2027?
Man, I don't know, but that really hits on the difference between games and music to me. Like, games are not music. They're not passive utility. They carry identity, and ownership matters, and the perceived value matters, right? Like, do you feel special owning a Spotify playlist? I don't, but you talk about a Pokemon cartridge, and now I'm like, dude, check this out. I feel good for that. So that's pretty awesome. Like, so I don't know, when everything starts getting included in subscriptions, the individual titles feel cheaper. And, on the other hand, you've got Nintendo charging you more because they can. Meanwhile, Microsoft is bundling more into their subscriptions because they have to, or they're gonna run out of business. So I don't know. I mean, Big Fish Games, which I used to work for, did subscriptions, and the privilege of getting games, of being able to purchase them was worth a monthly subscription, and that was always crazy. But a lot of people paid for that. But it really takes the individual games and makes them feel not great anymore. So I don't know if you're going to be able to buy Project O packs on Xbox Game Pass.
Wills, as the indie gaming advocate, I mean, we had the Humble Bundle led the way here, but it also gave me, I don't know, hundreds of games that I've literally never even opened. Was it a red flag or a green flag?
What more could you ask for, Sam? That sounds like a dream to me. I think I agree with Nintendo. Pokemon fans, pig eating the slop is the theme for this episode. But I think it's more interesting with Microsoft and with Xbox Game Pass. Finally, you own all of these IPs. You own some of the most household recognized names and most consistently purchased and monetized games in history. Put them on the pass. Make that valuable. I obviously we don't know the inner machinations of what exactly the ROI on Game Pass is, but we know it hasn't been there for the studios that are part of it. And I think Microsoft's leveraging their IP, leveraging the history that they have. I think that's a good way to do it. It makes Xbox Game Pass seem more valuable to me as a gamer. And justifies the price hike which they just made. So I see that as a green flag. Subscriptions as a whole, I think, need to come down, need to go through a much tighter curation funnel. I think we've seen Xbox, which just puts absolutely everything on there, the be all end all of Game Pass subscriptions. But I think what Xbox Game Pass doesn't do well is tell you what to play. And in an era where 20,000 games are coming out every year, that's valuable. People don't want to have to look for games on their own. One of the comments on one of the shorts from last week was, if a game is good, I shouldn't have to look for it. And that's how people think. I don't agree with it, but that is that people don't want to look for games. They want games to be curated for them. And that's where I see the real opportunity for subscriptions. Are Nintendo and Xbox doing that? No, but I don't think it's the end for subscriptions as a whole.
I do feel like adding World of Warcraft to this is one of the first sane things I've heard from Xbox. It makes infinitely more sense than taking an $80 Call of Duty and just giving it to people for free. I would love to be able to play World of Warcraft casually and not just hate myself every time I see that $15 a month disappear and I logged in one time. It'd be super cool to just be able to pop in, quest a little bit, because I feel like it, and not have to go through this rigmarole of subscribing and then I don't play for 20 days and it's miserable and I unsubscribe and I hate it again.
You still need to subscribe, right? This is the enshittification of streaming services. First it was $8, then it was $10, then it was $15, then it was $20 if you wanted a friend, then it was $30 if you wanted two friends and you wanted to watch it in anything above 16 pixels, and then it was $40 if you wanted to do all of that without ads. The same thing is going to happen here, right? And part of the reason why somebody like Microsoft is jamming all this content into Game Pass is because they just hiked the price of Game Pass $20 a month without delivering anything extra. So your $15 that you're saving is now just base package. So for everybody who's not playing WoW, here's an extra $20 a month on the same shit that you already weren't playing.
There's a threshold to consider here, though, right? the $5, $10, $15, $20 subscriptions and what they offer you are one thing, but once you start pushing 30, 40, it's almost becoming a lifestyle choice, and you're having to compare that against other things you could be using that for, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, this is just cable all over again, right? Like, cable bills are much higher than $30, $40, and we're, you know, it worked for a very long time. I don't think that this is gonna be any different. But hear me out, boys. In keeping with the theme of this episode, give me the slop pass. You know, just a new friend slop game every week. Me and my buddies can log in. We can play slop roulette. You know, we don't know what game we're gonna land in.
I would actually pay for this.
Exactly. So you know. So I don't think subscriptions in gaming are necessarily don't work. We just got to think about it differently. We gotta figure out a new way of going about this. The slop revolution.
Humble slop, baby.
I do think that there's something with adding World of Warcraft though, because you take a hardcore title that like it's really hard for new people to touch, and you say, look, it's already included now. You might as well log on and like try it a little bit. You know, you might as well boot it up now because you already have the subscription. There's both sides. The hardcore player that's moved on and the new person that's never tried it has a chance now to re-engage with it. And I think that makes sense on a different level. Michael O'Connor, over to you.
World of Warcraft's a great example because that was one of the really pioneering subscription models when they introduced it. One of the things they found was that people got really tied to their accounts, and they didn't want those accounts to end. So it created this kind of retention loop because they were financially already bought in. And that inspired a massive subscription model, especially as games became more and more live service. You know, that was really one of the main reasons for all the subscription models. It's because they were managing live operations. So subscription model makes sense. It was more like a software as a service, which kind of brings me to the point. Software as a service, if it is like that, is undergoing like a true kind of digital or software revolution at the moment. Like $1 trillion wiped off software as a service stocks just this month. So we're seeing a total AI-driven revolution in regards to how subscription models are being perceived by the market and used by users across not just video games, but across all software. I think actually it hasn't fully kind of penetrated. The impact of this hasn't fully penetrated its way into games yet. And it's probably something that we are going to see. But I do think that the nature of how we work with subscriptions across the board are all about to change.
And on that note, it's time to vote for your MVP of episode number 150, but really number 2 on video of Gamified. Knock, I'm going to you first. Who's your MVP of the day, brother?
Give it to Koji. He disagreed with me a lot, but he also agreed with me a lot, and it kind of balanced out. And I think he had a couple of really good takes where we disagreed. So we got to give it to him. Koji, who you got?
You know what, man? This I don't want to start a complex here, but I'm giving it to Dub. His take on benching the the remake team was like, I was like, yo, even a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while, you know?
Dub, who you voting for?
Oh, dude, I'm giving it to Kevin, hoping that it'll convince him to put the Origins packs on the Game Pass. So,
Kevin, who you got, bud?
I'm gonna circle it around to Knock. I didn't say it, but he had several takes that I had to retake in my head because we were on the same page. It's good.
Michael O'Connor, who you voting for?
I'm also going to go with Knock for some really insightful takes, but also enshittification is fantastic. Something that we should all be working with in future.
Will Spangler, who you voting for?
I got to give it to Koji. Koji crushed it today.
That means we have a tie, so I'm going to settle it. Koji, congratulations, MVP of the day. Over to you, 50 seconds of FaceTime.
Let's go. I don't know what to say, man. Just let's make new things. And if you want to see a new thing, come to GDC and visit us and come see some of our new things. I don't really like to promote the stuff that we do, but yeah, check out Parallel. And I feel greasy, sort of like self-promoting. But yeah, you know what? Honestly, like if I can use the rest of my time to just be like, as a gamer, I think it is your responsibility to be like, I'm just going to try new shit. You know, that's what we need you to do. I need you to be playing Mugenics or Mio, which is a game that Kevin just turned me on to, or whatever. Just like try new things. Don't just
turn
like
off Counter-Strike for the love of God.
No,
Wow. Okay.
Does Overwatch 2 count, Koji?
Overwatch 1 again counts, I guess.
That's going to do it for today's episode of Gamified. Big shout out to all of our panelists. Give them a follow. The links will be in the description. Appreciate all you guys. We'll see you next week.